So the other day for me was a very hard day. I received news, um, like nothing bad, just like hard for me. Um, and nothing bad, I'm good, everything's good. But it was just news of basically a direction that I wanted to go in and had planned on going in. I was determined to go in. It was like a curveball was thrown. And it was that my decision that I had made and that I was married to and that I was gung ho on doing wasn't appearing to be the correct path forward anymore. And I will start the video by saying I'm not going to share what it was, mainly because it doesn't matter for the message, and I never want certain things to like take away from the whole point of why I share. Why I share is that I hope that my readers or my followers can easily put themselves into my position or their situation onto it and glean what they need to and learn and move their lives forward. So it's not really about me, it's about the message. So we'll leave it with that. And it was hard for me because that was the plan, right? And the last few years, I guess it just piled onto that because I had so many plans and so many things, and I knew how I wanted it to go. And I wanted control because it's a false belief that we have control and that we have say. The only thing that we have control over is how we react to any given situation at any given time and how we choose to perceive it and interact with it. So this was just very hard for me. And my mom was present and she was great and she gave great advice. She held space for me and, guided me in such a way that allowed me to have my feelings and to say what I wanted to say and feel how I wanted to feel, but also give her perspective in a very respectful, way that didn't make me feel that I was wrong or that I needed to choose differently right now or ever. So we spent a little more time together and then, she, left and I wanted to see my godchildren, but I couldn't stop crying because I was just so distraught that what I wanted wasn't what I was gonna probably have to do. But then I also just was paralyzed because I didn't know which the decision was correct. So I went there eventually, immediately started crying once I saw the kids because they're just balls of amazing energy and love. And then they're looking at me and I said, I'm really sorry. I just had a really hard day. And they were amazing. They gave me lots of love, hugs and kisses. And then their parents held space for me, like in the most amazing and incredible way. Real deep conversation, real sharing of emotions on all ends and spaces. They, my biggest takeaways were these beautiful analogies of how, you don't know because I'm telling you, they said to look at life and how they look at things as a scale, and you will start to throw pros and cons out there, feelings, facts, all the things, and they land on different sides of the scale. And usually at the end it's quite clear, one side will be higher, lower, things may be balanced. But they looked at me and they said, honestly, Kia, we're not hearing you say anything that's tipping the scale at all and changing it at all. And I had a moment where I sat back and they said, why are you so set on your choice that you're making or that you want to make? Because, nothing was made in that moment just yet. And I sat there and I said, I honestly don't know. And it was a powerful moment because they were so gracious and amazing and loving and my friends, right? My family ultimately. And they didn't make me feel dumb, and I felt safe enough to say I don't know, because I didn't understand why I was so locked on a decision. And one could argue that the last few years for me have been very rough, where I've had to make a lot of decisions, and not so much decisions, I had to come to terms with the decisions that were made for me. And this is a moment where I'm allowed to say no. So I'm just going to say no because I want to say no and I want what I want. And they said another thing. They said that the sign of intelligence is the ability to pivot, change perspective, to change a choice, to just change, right? The ability to change when new evidence or perspective or whatever you want to call it is presented. So I loved that they didn't make me feel less than or stupid or anything. They just held the space and allowed me to get there. I couldn't articulate a good enough reason for the scale to justify my choice. Even though a few hours earlier, I thought I had all the reason in the world, because the reason was because that's what I want. And then you quickly learn that our choices affect other people directly, indirectly, right? There's ripples involved. So I had to step back and go, my choice is very selfish. And there are times in life where it's okay to be selfish, Most of the time, it's okay. Even if other people don't like it, it's our lives and we're allowed to choose what we want to choose. But sometimes it's not about us. And sometimes we have to consider others and how our choices will indeed affect them and their lives. So I came to them very heavy, very confused. I couldn't really breathe. I felt like everything was piling on top of me, and I felt like I had to make a decision right then and there. And they also reminded me that I didn't have to make the decision yesterday, today, tomorrow. I had time, plenty of time to choose what I wanted to do, and that I could choose the choice and then back out of it later if I didn't like it. And all of these things were wonderful to have. So it's so important and so just crucial to have a circle. And it doesn't need to be an army of many. It just needs to be a small, trusted group, people, tribe, family, community, whatever you want to call it, that you can go to that can hold space for you in such a way. And why it's just important to share and to receive. So earlier in the day, in the week, I was at MSK getting my labs, totally routine. And in the labs, you're in there and, there's people in all walks of their treatment. And there was a woman there who was clearly at the middle to end of her chemotherapy treatment. I didn't know this because I was there, so I know the signs. And she was sitting there with her husband drinking water, and all of a sudden she starts coughing like really bad, to the point where everyone's like, "Are you okay?" And she said, it just went down the wrong way. She's like, "I'm having trouble swallowing. Like I don't know how, I'm not able to swallow." And I wasn't gonna say anything, but then just before I could even question it, I said, "I had that happen to me too while I was on chemo." And she kind of perked up and she said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, there was a time, a period of time towards the end, the middle to the end, where I couldn't swallow. I would put water or juice in my mouth and I would just stand there and panic would happen over me, because when in life, normally you put food in your mouth, you drink, it just happens, Like it just happens. What is it? Involuntarily is the word I'm looking for. You don't think about it. Like you're breathing, you're existing. You're not thinking, inhale, exhale, lungs taken. You're not thinking, esophagus soften, tongue go down. Like, none of that. But for me, for a few months, I had to sit there and actively go, water's in mouth, calm down, breathe. You will eventually swallow. it was crazy. And I didn't tell anyone about it because I just assumed that it was singular to me and no one had mentioned it. I hadn't read it anywhere. Not that I Googled much because I didn't, but like, I'm like, this is creepy. And I'm like, it's going to change. It's going to get better. And it did. It went away. Like as soon as my final chemo treatment was over, it was like a week later, like it was like it never happened. So in that moment, which is interesting moment because my appointment for my lab was 40 minutes prior to when I had gotten there, you know. So theoretically, I shouldn't have even been there for the interaction that was had. So it was quite serendipitous, I think, to have been there to witness, to then be able to share my experience with her. And then in turn, in my sharing, I was able to give her comfort because she was so grateful and so thankful. And she said, thank you so much for saying anything and for sharing and for opening up and talking to me. And I said, of course. You know, I said, I'm just happy that you're here. I'm happy to be here. And, you know, I'm sorry that this is where we are, but, you know, I'm just glad to be able to give you a little peace and to let you know that what you're going through is normal and you're going to be okay. And that was the extent of our interaction. And it was just another great reminder of just being present, being in the moment, being where I am, and sharing, being the lighthouse for her the way my godchildren's parents were the lighthouse for me last night. They were able to just be the lights that they are and guide me back to myself, back to the shore. In my moments of just pure panic and disappointment and upset and fear, like all of the things. So I want you to know that no matter what you're growing through, because you're growing through all of it, everything is going to be okay. You are going to get through this, and one day you won't even remember, you know, the details of all the struggle. You'll just be at peace, and you will have the knowledge, and you will be able to stand strong and be the light for someone else. So keep going through, charging through, and getting through it, and talking to others, connecting to others, and praying and believing in yourself. And just know that you can get through anything, and you will get through it.